Okay. All right. Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is our webinar on one of our more recent studies, cross-movement collaboration for farmed animal advocates in Southeast Asia. And my name is Jenna Reedy. I'm the communications manager here at Faunalytics.
Hi, I'm Ella. I'm head of projects at Good Growth.
All right, so we will jump right in. Please feel free to type in the chat introducing yourself and where you're located. But I'm going to go ahead and jump in to getting into things about the study. So this study explores social movements in Southeast Asia, offering insights to help advocates there make collaboration easier and more effective. The report focuses on 6 key Southeast Asian countries. We have Thailand, Indonesia, the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, and Vietnam, which form the largest economies in the region. So you can see our sample there of the countries. So after a preliminary literature review, local researchers helped identify key organizations, gray literature, and social media content on social movements in their countries. We then selected 2 movements for in-depth analysis, the environmental movement and the health and development movement, focused on human development, so well-being, livelihoods, and access to basic services. We then interviewed senior staff at organizations in these movements, providing specific insights into the social movements in their regions. So overview kind of our research questions that we dove into here. The first, what social movements are currently active in Southeast Asia? Then who are the key players in these social movements? How do key movement players currently collaborate within and across movements? And on what issues do they collaborate? And finally, what are specific collaborative opportunities like strategy, projects, fundraising between these movements and farmed animal advocacy? So Ella will take it over for what we found.
Great. Thanks, Jenna. As you can see from our research questions, we mainly focused on this is more of an exploratory study to understand different social movements in Southeast Asia. And we're very ambitious, try to cover different countries. So in a way, it's a very kind of broad overview. And then we dove a little bit deeper into specifically environmental and health movements because we found more overlaps with farmed animal advocacy. And then um, but mostly it was to understand what they do, how they're thinking about their issues, and how they collaborate. So I think in terms of what the potentials and opportunities are for collaboration, that's something we can discuss, and it's more in our recommendations. So yeah, our first key finding in understanding these movements is yeah, we found that environmental and health development movements have the most promising opportunities for collaboration with farm animal advocacy, and specifically on topics around diets, land use change related to agriculture, antibiotic overuse, and concerns around antibiotic resistance, and obviously zoonotic disease spillover and also the environmental impacts directly from farms, because there's a lot of farming in Asia, as we know. Um, and also in terms of livelihoods of rural and lower income communities, people who are involved in the agriculture sector, a lot of these issues just all uh, are very relevant to when we talk about farm animal advocacy. Next. By talking with a lot of the senior leaders, we know that there's a lot of collaboration already exists within the movement, within these movements, specifically in climate and health. And we see different types of collaboration. So, for example, there's more political ones related to certain political parties, but there's also project-based ones where maybe it's on a specific initiative or project that people work together, or on coalitions or around protests and statements. So when we say already happening, we're talking within these movements. So not necessarily with farm animal advocates yet. Next finding. And we found the most popular or common way that organizations in these movements work together is through coalitions. So it could be either grassroots mobilization, it could be working with institutes, but then different organizations will play different roles within the organization based on their network, based on their strengths and skills. And from what we've heard, a key to a successful coalition is also just making sure that there is a clear leader, that someone is taking charge and driving the coalition. And if everyone is just kind of very loosely working around it, then generally nothing very much happens. So as all of you would know already, the political and social landscape across these countries are very, very different. There are some countries that are more restrictive in what NGOs can do. There are some that is a lot more, much richer history of grassroots mobilization. And so in this study, I would suggest you to look at our country level um, report or country level one pagers that we have included to kind of further understand what each country's landscape is like, some recommendations. And we also included an appendix for funders that these groups mentioned that they are getting funding from. So these might be interesting sources of funding that we haven't considered yet as animal advocates to further look into. Yeah, so I think this is quite obvious, but really what is important is building the alignment and trust when you're a part of a coalition. And what we've seen, especially in Asia, is that there's advocates in these movements often mention, oh yeah, I know that person. We ask like, oh, how did this coalition come up? How did this collaboration come up? And they'll be like, oh yeah, I already know this person from university or from network or even like through my like parents' connections. So it's very much a lot of networking that needs to be done. And I believe to because animal advocacy is so new in Asia that there is just a lot of general networking and relationship building that needs to be done first before any like real collaborations can happen. So some of the ways that that could be done is obviously through attending networking events, potentially finding mentors in the space, in the sense that you find mentors in other movements. To maybe if they're willing to take you on as a mentee, to talk about these issues, and then potentially they can refer you to people who are important. And then lastly is just what we've learned is also just showing up. So showing up to other organizations' protests, sharing their social media posts, or kind of mutually sharing so that you're sharing your audience, but then they might also share your messaging and campaigns with their audience. So kind of just mutual support in the beginning to build that relationship and trust for further collaboration in the future. And as we said earlier, there are different landscapes in different countries. And so for certain countries, the focus really for a lot of these advocates is on policy corporate engagement through high level networking and kind of really knowing people. And then there's also in other countries, there's much more um, room for grassroots action, protests, campaigning. So it really does depend on which country you're in, and what is possible and generally effective in that country. And then lastly is what we found is collaboration within these movements is often project-based. So the coalitions may last for a while, but it's very much often the work is around doing events together, doing shared research is an interesting one. So I think we also know that one environmental organization, they did use some of their research funding to understand more about female livelihoods and issues with violence against women by working with another organization. So I guess they were helping each other out to understand their that particular audience better, but then they were able to get insights and data about these two different topics by researching the same audience. And also around treaties that might come up throughout the year, and also just general project-based partnerships. So this kind of opportunity-based style of working together allows people to slowly build trust and also um, the flexibility so that they don't need to always be like fully value aligned or fully aligned with each other all the time. Yeah, so some of our recommendations that we'll share. Yeah, so when we talk with individuals from other movements, you really want to highlight like what you think the shared goals and potential impact that you're looking for is, so that it just prevents or it avoids kind of miscommunication or them already coming into a conversation with perceptions of what vegan or animal advocacy is. And then in terms of assessing impact of what you want to do as an animal advocate in Asia, definitely the human impact is very important to consider, and in order to get support from other groups, and also the economic impact as well. So probably calculations there will be needed. And then next is what we said earlier about connections and credibility. Really to get your foot in the door, likely you'll need some sort of referral or connection built. So kind of finding creative ways to go about doing that would be important. And then in order to build trust with other grassroots movements, like for farmer livelihoods or maybe environmental movements, really is just to start with being there. I think that's what we've learned from a lot of the environmental advocates who have managed to build very good grassroots coalitions and support with farmers or fishermen in the area. And then lastly is to build coalitions around certain, like maybe timed opportunities, like COP or certain treaties that are coming up, so that it's more timely and it's flexible and project based. And then we're going to share a little bit about each country, but I'm not going to go into detail. So I'll just probably highlight some key opportunities that we've seen in these countries. And I think with Indonesia, obviously we know it's a Muslim majority country, so kind of working with religious institutions is one high potential for impact. And then also they have a school meal program right now. So whether there's opportunity to influence that because it is a countrywide government funded program. Um, and then also in terms of plant-based outreach, through talking with advocates who've tried that before and pivoted to environmental, we learned that if you want to do plant-based outreach, maybe the target audience is really, at least for now, the upper middle urban class instead of trying to target the broader underprivileged class. They would be more receptive. And then Thailand, because of the presence of a large number of agricultural, animal and plant agricultural companies there, obviously corporate work is very important and it'll have a lot of potential for impact. Um, but in Thailand, there's also a long history of social justice movements, so working with different players in that area around climate and social justice. And then also consider working further with religious entities. Um, specifically Buddhist entities, and influencing them to go even more plant-based than they are right now. The Philippines probably has some of the richest histories of grassroots social justice movements. So it's a very grassroots based kind of social movement country. And so really working with these groups who have close ties with farmers, understanding more about their livelihood challenges and how um, farm animal welfare and plant-based advocacy can come in through that angle would be really important. Vietnam definitely has a much more restrictive um, NGO presence in terms of what it can do. So we found that business-based models seem to work very well. So working with businesses on alleviating their environmental impact or coming up with innovative business ideas related to plant-based or animal welfare, I think are opportunities in Vietnam. And with Malaysia, actually the farm animal vegan advocacy scene is relatively small there. So I think there is a large opportunity to really grow that presence. It's a very ethnically diverse country, so kind of also working with different ethnic groups and their different like cuisines in terms of promoting plant-based, really kind of selling plant-based as the kind of diverse option so that it caters to everyone with their different diets and different restrictions. And also working with ESG-minded companies to discuss more about environmental impact of meat eating would be another opportunity. And then lastly, with Singapore, also it's more restrictive environment for NGO work. We found that also it is very much more, even when there are NGO work there, it's much more elite based. So it's a very small country. So it's very much about the people you know, the networks you have. So that's obviously one way to get in to influence policy. But then there's also maybe potentially through corporates and through plant-based diet awareness and change work, which we've also seen is not uh, very active in Singapore. So there's potentially also opportunities for that.
All right. So as I put in the chat, if you have any questions for us, please type that in the chat for us to address. But we did have an earlier submitted question, which I will put in the chat so y'all can see it as well. But someone had submitted to us, how can we get started to work with environmental groups in the region? And Ella, I don't know if you have the perfect answer for that. That's a big question.
Yeah, so I think just some things to consider. As said earlier, definitely just very basic ways of joining environmental group events, talking to people, really becoming friends and showing up for their work, I think is very important. Maybe even in the beginning when there's no clear value alignment yet, is a way to build trust and show that, you're not just immediately looking to work together. Um, but I think what we found in terms of like uh, hopefully this will help like better understand where a lot of environmental groups is coming from is just certain motivations for their work. So if I could just quickly summarize that, I think one of them is in Southeast Asia, people often or people often very directly experience pollution, floods, haze, smog from environmental problems. So often environmental groups are directly addressing these like very immediate problems. And also even through bigger long-term problems like climate change, it is very like apparent. So, you experience typhoons. And so kind of using these very clear issues as a point to get people interested in the topic or care and work on the topic is a way that environmental groups operate in the region. Also, they discuss a lot about risk. So, really talking about how climate change is a direct threat and it's very obvious that it's already going on right now, um, is another way to appeal to the audience. And also, in certain countries, justice focus is a big kind of point of concern or value for a lot of these environmental groups. So really specifically talking about how rural populations bear the brunt of environmental harms. So that also applies to animal agriculture, right? The farms are in the rural areas, pollution is experienced by people in these rural areas. People in rural areas are the smallholder farmers who are contracted as animal farmers for big companies and, squeezed by them. And so I think kind of really going with a justice angle in certain countries, especially in places like Philippines, uh, really uh, may really work well. And then also there's a general care for nature that a lot of these environmental groups cite as their motivation for working in this field. So, uh, kind of seeing protection of nature as a moral duty and as intrinsic motivation for a lot of these advocates to do their work. And then lastly is to follow trends. So, kind of what is trendy right now? Maybe it is climate change, or maybe it is international collaboration, and kind of using these trends as a topic, as a starting point to do collaboration or to start a campaign.
Awesome. Great. And we did have someone submit a question here in the chat. So they're saying, I'm wondering how to balance farmed animal advocacy and collaboration with grassroots communities, especially on sensitive issues. So, examples, some Muslim communities promoting veganism, plant-based diet can be seen as conflicting with traditions like animal slaughter during certain celebrations. How can we find common ground when certain topics might spark backlash?
Yeah, so we didn't specifically look into how to target religious movements. Like that was we looked at religious movements as one potential, but we decided, yeah, maybe it is not the most aligned. I think just certain points come to mind. So one is there room to explore promoting plant-based as the option that caters to everyone. So on a kind of institutional level, so let's say you're in Malaysia or even in Indonesia, even though there is Muslim majority, there's also a lot of people who have other diets, other restrictions, and that vegan meals and plant-based meals is the option that everyone would be able to eat. So I think this stems from talking with different advocates, but also a personal experience where I was on a airline and I was on a plane and I noticed there was a lot of people ordering vegan meals and those people were clearly Muslim. So I asked one of them, I was like, "Oh, can I ask like why you're ordering the vegan meal?" And they're like, "Oh, because I'm Muslim and have restrictions." But I think it's also because they didn't trust that the airline would provide the halal meal. And so then they actually prefer to order the vegan meal because that definitely is halal. And that would apply to other religions and other restrictions as well, because vegan meals often is the one that, is safe for all. So I think that's potentially one angle. Another angle is with festivals and yeah, where maybe animal consumption is very common and popular, kind of going it from a health angle. So what we've also heard is, especially during festivals like Eid, with the post-fast meal, um, actually with actually a whole month of fasting and then eating a lot after fasting, people gain a lot of weight. They feel very unhealthy. People say that they feel, uh, yeah, they're just like feel uncomfortable because they're just suddenly eating a lot of meat. And so kind of really promoting plant-based as a healthier way to go about your meal after fasting, and that it just yeah from another angle. So potentially not like having to confront these issues straight up, but I kind of talking about it through another angle, or I guess another way to do it is from experience, maybe that is not the target audience that you want to convert or work with. So kind of as one group in Indonesia found with kind of giving away plant-based meals to lower income communities, the reception wasn't that great because people thought like, well, I'm already eating plant-based. Like, why are you giving me a free meal that is plant-based? So then kind of maybe ch they then changed their tactic to working on education for more focus on environmental, but also working with more urban, more affluent communities to make them go plant or to like persuade them to go plant-based. So I think there are just, yeah, multiple ways to go about it. And hopefully that answers your question or gives you some food for thought.
Awesome. Well, they did say thank you, so hopefully that was helpful. Um, well, I'm not seeing any more questions coming through. So did want to add here, for additional information, you can contact Ella at Good Growth, at the email address here, hello@goodgrowth.io. The link to the full study is in the chat as well as here on the slide. And we also offer free office hours. They're virtual, and you can just pop in and talk to someone on our team, either Good Growth or Faunalytics, and we'll help you the best we can if you want to take a deep dive into something in this particular study or another study that you found and want to talk through. I'll put that in the chat here as well. And then finally, on a personal note, if anyone here is planning on being at the Asia for Animals conference in Taipei at the end of the month, I will be there. So hopefully we can meet in person instead of all our fun virtual things we get to do day to day. But I look forward to hopefully seeing some of you in Taipei later this month. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in future studies.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm also happy to, yeah, have a chat with anyone if you want to just book a time through office hours to do kind of more specific brainstorming, or I can share more from our report.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone.